All right, hello and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a term you hear absolutely everywhere: cloud computing. Now, I know it can sound super complex, but I promise you, by the end of this, you'll see it's as simple and as revolutionary as just flipping a light switch. So let's dive in and see how this one simple idea changed, well, everything. Okay, so I want you to imagine it's, say, 100 years ago. If you wanted power for your home, you had to handle the whole shebang yourself. You'd have to buy a massive, really expensive generator, you'd have to keep feeding it fuel, and you'd better hope you knew how to fix it when it broke down, because it definitely would. It was a ton of work, super costly, and just not very efficient. Now, flash forward to today. You just plug into the wall, you use exactly what you need, and you pay a simple bill at the end of the month. The power company, they handle all the messy stuff. And that is the big idea behind cloud computing, right there. It takes that exact same simple logic and applies it to computing power. So instead of buying and managing your own physical computer servers, your own personal generators, you just rent that power from a huge provider over the internet. So, if we're going to get official about it, what's the definition? Well, cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of computer services. And the two magic phrases there are on-demand, meaning you get it the second you need it, and pay as you go. That one's huge. It means you only pay for what you actually use. No more forking over thousands for a giant server that just sits there doing nothing half the time. So who are these giant power companies for the digital world? Well, you've definitely heard their names. The big three, the major players, are Amazon Web Services, you know it as AWS, Microsoft's platform, which is called Azure, and of course, the Google Cloud Platform. These guys have built this massive global infrastructure so that we don't have to. Now, renting the cloud isn't just a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. There are actually different levels of service you can get. And to make sense of them, let's switch gears and use a new analogy that works perfectly: renting a house. These services come in three main flavors. You've got IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. And really, each one just gives a different answer to the big question: how much of the work do you actually want to do yourself? And this is where our real estate analogy really shines. So first up, you've got IaaS, which stands for Infrastructure as a Service. Think of this like renting an empty plot of land. The provider gives you the land, the virtual servers and storage, but you're responsible for building the house from the ground up. You install the operating system, the software, all of it. Next, there's PaaS, or Platform as a Service. This is like renting an unfurnished house. The foundation, walls, electricity, it's all there. You just have to bring in your own furniture, which in this case is your application and your data. And finally, my favorite, SaaS, Software as a Service. This is like checking into a fully furnished, all-inclusive hotel. You don't manage a thing. You just show up and use it. And here's the thing. You are already a heavy user of the cloud, specifically SaaS. I mean, every single time you check your Gmail, stream something on Netflix, or use Google Docs, you're using a super sophisticated piece of software that's completely managed for you by someone else somewhere out there in the cloud. Okay, so you've rented your plot of land in the cloud. That's great. But you can't just leave it open, right? You need roads to connect things, you need fences to keep it secure, and that's where cloud networking comes in, building right on top of our real estate analogy. The absolute cornerstone of this whole thing is something called the Virtual Private Cloud, or a VPC. A VPC is your own private, totally isolated section of the public cloud. Think of it literally like putting a strong fence around your own digital property. Inside that fence, you call all the shots. And what kind of control are we talking about? Well, pretty much anything you could do in a physical data center. You can create different neighborhoods for your servers, called subnets. You can set up virtual routers and gateways to direct all the traffic. And most importantly, you can build powerful digital walls and gates with things like security groups and firewalls to control exactly who and what gets in or out. So, you're probably wondering, how is it possible to build an entire complex network without touching a single physical wire or router? Well, there's an amazing technology that acts as the engine behind all of this modern cloud networking. And that engine is called Software-Defined Networking, or SDN. And you know what? It really is kind of like magic. It cleverly separates the brain of the network, the control part, from the physical hardware that moves the data around. What that means for you is that you can design, build, and change incredibly complex and secure networks entirely through software, often with just a few clicks. It gives you a level of speed and flexibility that was just a pipe dream with old-school physical hardware. So we've covered the what and the how, but that leads us to the most important question of all. Why? Why is everybody doing this? What are the massive benefits that are causing everyone, from tiny startups to the biggest companies in the world, to move to the cloud?
The advantages are just huge, a real game changer. For starters, cost savings. You're not spending a fortune on hardware up front. Then there's the incredible speed and agility. You can spin up a new server in minutes, not the weeks or months it would take to order and install a physical one. You get instant global scale. Want to launch your app in Tokyo, London, and Sydney tomorrow? No problem. On top of that, you get access to world-class performance, security, and reliability because you're tapping into the expertise and billions of dollars that companies like Amazon and Microsoft have already invested.
All right, let's bring this all back home and make it really personal. We've been talking about some big ideas, but the truth is, the cloud isn't some distant techie thing. It is completely woven into your daily life, right here, right now. So I've got a question for you. Just think about it for a second. Can you name 3 software-as-a-service applications that you use every single day, probably without even thinking about it? If you're scratching your head, just think about your day. Did you watch a video on YouTube? Save a file to Google Drive? Listen to a playlist on Spotify? Send a message on WhatsApp? Yep, you're using the cloud. All of these are massive SaaS applications running on enormous cloud infrastructures. You're already a cloud pro.
And that brings us to one final thought to leave you with. Imagine a brand new startup. They've got a brilliant idea for an app, and they think it could be the next big thing. Now, should they go out and spend their limited startup cash on buying their own expensive physical servers, or should they just use the cloud? After everything we've just talked about, the cost, the speed, the ability to scale up instantly if their app goes viral overnight, the answer seems pretty obvious, doesn't it?